What's up, everybody? I'm David Hain. Welcome to episode 160 of the A to D From Addict to Disciple podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, follow, and share the link with your friends. Really, can you do me a favor and get 2 friends to listen to this episode and then chat about it with them? If you'd like to get our curriculum, you can get the paperback or ebook of From Ashes to Destiny on Amazon. When we come back, we'll get into this episode entitled, I Feel Disrespected. Welcome back to episode 160 of the A to D From Addict to Disciple podcast entitled, I Feel Disrespected. Lots of listeners have contacted me in response to the last few episodes of being victims and how they feel about that. Today's episode will be a walkabout where I share snippets of the messages and conversations we've had. I'll share the thoughts, feelings, and emotions of 4 of the listeners anonymously. I want to ask each of you to listen with your heart. Can you hear their feelings? If you were talking with them, could you name and validate their emotions? Okay, you ready to join me on this walkabout? Here we go. So the first listener said, I've been disrespected my whole life. I actually wonder what's wrong if people accept me. Are they trying to get something from me? I actually feel better in a way if people I meet seem to have a hidden agenda, because I actually think they all do. And I think that's why I always end up in relationships where I'm disrespected or abused. Do you think that being disrespected has become my comfort zone? It's like the idiom, better the devil you know than the devil you don't. Over the years, I've learned how to deal with being disrespected by people. I honestly believe that I'm most on edge, sort of queasy or can't control my anxiety when I meet a new person and they seem to accept me or like me too quickly. Sure, a lot of good stuff in that first listener's comments. Here's the second one. David, I've just been bullied at home sort of my whole life. The mantra I always heard was, children are to be seen and not heard. So I learned quickly to be quiet, to keep my thoughts and questions to myself, to stuff my emotions. And these were emotions that I was too young to understand anyway. And I seemed to be the butt of jokes in the family. I was mocked whenever I made the smallest mistake, and my family would be sure to tell all of my aunts and uncles and cousins. And then when they would talk to me about it, they'd say, what were you thinking? Why do you keep embarrassing your father by being so dumb and doing stupid things? Do you know how it feels to be laughed at, to be made fun of by your own family? To be not the handsome one or the pretty one in the family, not as nice as your brother and sister, not like your father, who everyone respects in the community, and then to be reminded, what would he think of you? I'm sure he didn't raise you this way. And all this bullying at home, David, just led me to be bullied in class. You see, I was not the best at sports. And so whenever recess would come, or trying out for sports teams, or just picking up teams during recess on the playground, I was not just the second choice, but the last resort. When everybody else is picked and I'm the only one standing there. So I decided I'll be the best team player I can to make others look better. But then it only got worse. I was never thanked for what I did right. What I heard instead from the stars on the teams were, are you blind? Why didn't you pass me the ball when I was open? Wow. Deep stuff coming out here from our listeners. I hope this is stirring some thoughts in you of things that you have to talk about too. The third listener said, yeah, I've been disrespected my whole life, and when I have talked to people about it, when I go to counselors and stuff, they tell me to put up boundaries, to be tougher, stronger, not to be so nice, because if I focus on being too nice, everyone will take advantage of you. So I tried deflection whenever comments would come that hurt, or sarcasm in response, or just pretending it didn't hurt. But the best advice I ever got was, don't let someone get comfortable with disrespecting you. I've learned over the years that the best boundaries I can set up is learning to speak up, not building walls that I can hide behind or make decisions to stay away from certain people, but never say why. I've learned to speak up and tell people what I like and what I don't like. Then I see how people respond. I like the quote by Stephen Covey when he said, most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. This is huge for me because so many times when I finally decided to start sharing and opening up a bit, that the people were actually only listening to reply, to fix me, to correct me, to point out the things I was doing wrong. And that just made me feel more insecure in relationships because I felt more devalued and more unimportant or unworthy of people to just hear my opinions. It seemed like they didn't care about my feelings, or they'll never listen if I try to share my thoughts. So, David, it took me a long time to feel safe saying how I'm feeling. But I can say the key for me was that advice, don't let someone get comfortable with disrespecting you. So I work every day, every week at learning how to speak up and not hide behind the walls anymore. Wow. Good stuff from that listener. Our fourth and final listener for today's podcast said, David, even with my counselors, I feel disrespected. I try to tell her that I'm doing all the work, but it isn't working. I'm trying, but she doesn't believe me. She just keeps saying, try harder. But I feel tired. I don't feel stronger. I feel like giving up. This is too hard. I don't know how to please my counselor. And I end up going home from sessions saying, are you really concerned about me and my recovery? And the one thing that bugs me all the time is, why did the sessions end just because we're out of time? Just because 50 minutes has gone by? And I want to say to my counselor, do you even realize I was that close to a breakthrough, like seconds away from a breakthrough, and there you were closing your papers and putting your pen away and saying, see you next week. Do you even have a clue how that makes me feel like a little child again? It makes me feel unimportant. It's like I'm truly just a client and my counselor's just doing her job to earn her pay. How do I tell her how that motivates me to just start playing the game and only tell her what she wants to hear? After all, she's made it clear we only have 50 minutes to get through her agenda for the session. Wow. 4 different views on disrespect, but a huge common thread. And I think the thread is that disrespect is a terrific motivator, but it can motivate us to prove other people right instead of motivating us to prove them wrong. In closing, I want to encourage each of you who are living in any of these situations of disrespect to speak up. Remember, the best boundary you can have is learning to speak up. Maybe we stay too caught up in our own situations and circumstances because of a lifetime of being told to keep quiet. And so we just keep quiet. I want to encourage you to find the words for what you're feeling. These feelings too often remain unspoken desires because we don't feel anyone cares or we're not worthy. So I'd urge you to begin by writing them down in a journal. Write your feelings, your emotions, your thoughts, your ideas. Write them down in a journal. Then maybe share them with a friend or someone in your support group. When you do share, listen with your heart. Try to share your feelings behind the words and see which people truly hear you, which people validate your feelings. Because the people who truly hear you will be the ones who truly respect you. Thanks for listening to this episode of the A to D from Addict to Disciple podcast. If you would like to join an online group or get one-on-one counseling to help you in processing your feelings of being disrespected, please message me on the link in this podcast or by email at davidfromatod@gmail.com or go to my website, www.fromatod.org, and click on the contact page. And for those of you who are sharing this with two friends and talking to them about it, I'd love to hear your feedback. And you can keep in touch with what we're doing in From A to D by following me on Instagram at David From A to D. For our Spotify listeners, you can leave your comments by clicking on the link they provide on that platform. Tune in Monday for our next episode, and as always, stay safe and stay strong.